Welcome to this special bonus episode of the Passive House Podcast. I'm Zach Semke, Director of Passive House Accelerator, and we're pleased to be sharing a series of bonus episodes recorded at PhiusCon 2022 in Chicago. These interviews were made possible by generous support from Corp and Zola Windows. In this interview, Passive House Podcast co-host Matthew Cutler-Welsh speaks with Dr. Andreas Holm, the opening keynote speaker at PhiusCon 2022. Enjoy.
Hey, well, I've got Andreas Holm here, who was a keynote speaker at the PhiusCon 2022 here in Chicago. Great presentation. I really enjoyed listening to it yesterday, Andreas. So really great to get to catch up with you today. For those that don't know you, haven't been here at the conference, give us a little bit of a background as to what you do and where you're from.
Okay. I am Andreas Holm. I'm the director of the research institute called FIW in Munich, which is an old research institute established in 1918. And for more than 100 years, our focus is on energy efficiency in buildings. And my background is I studied physics and I have a PhD in civil engineering, and I worked for more than 20 years for Fraunhofer, where I started my career in the US as well. I was one of the co-authors of the Woofy software and also of the Woofy Plus and the Woofy FIW software, together with our partners from, at that time, Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And and now for the last 10 years I am the director of FIW. I'm doing a lot of research work related to the energy efficiency in buildings, of the building stock in general. We are doing consulting work or we are advising the German government. I'm also the chair of plenty of standards, energy-related standards, like the German Energy Code and international ISO standards as well.
Tell us about the German Energy Code at the moment. Is it close to Passive House?
Yeah, it is almost close to Passive.
People meeting the code, are they almost doing Passive House without knowing it?
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what's happening or will happen in the future, because we are adapting the codes continuously.
Yeah.
But so far we are very, very close to the Passive House standards regarding new buildings.
And is that fairly recent that it's got to that
No,
state?
I think since 2016 that's where we are probably close to the Passive House standard, and it's further developing. We are planning to update the code in the next year, and also one more update in 2025. So, and at the end, we are. The idea is really to become better, even better than the Passive House standard.
And in Germany, are those changes fairly well forecast to the industry?
There is a kind of a plan, which the government, when they started with their period, they give an idea what will happen during the next 4 years.
Right.
And now it's clearly stated that by the end of 2025, we want to have a new standard which is better than the Passive House standard, or better or equal to the Passive House standard. So that's already announced. Yeah. And all the changes we had in the past were also pre-announced. At least by a year in advance. So it's not always a big surprise for the industry. Yeah.
Now, yesterday you talked a lot about effectively energy resilience and drawing parallels to 100 years ago.
And 50 years ago.
and some issues around geopolitical issues that drove energy efficiency, and that's happening right now again. Kind of a shame that it has to get to that point for it to become an issue. But do you see things like restrictions of gas supply as an impetus for getting awareness and some urgency around efficiency?
Absolutely. So that's hard to say, but it's this is a kind of a booster for energy efficiency. Yeah. This is, and not only because of it keeps kind of a geopolitical stability, but it also guarantees you, if you have an energy efficient house, you are on the right way. If you're comfortable, you save money, which is definitely an issue nowadays. And at the same time, you as a foundation for decarbonization for a future generation.
Absolutely.
So energy efficiency is definitely not something which is bad. It's a booster. It's an enabler for a lot of technologies and for a better future society.
Yeah, which you talked about as well, it being not just about, that was the theme of yesterday, was energy is one reason, but there's also all these other benefits to society of health and wellness and community as well, which is also really important. Now, you talked a lot about 2045. Why is 2045 the goal? Because most people talk about 2050 as being the end point. Why 2045?
Honestly, if we're talking about 2045 or 2050, it doesn't matter. The only thing we have to keep in mind that it is not so far away. And it's in 2045 was a decision by the German government that they wanted to be CO2 neutral by 2045. It was a political decision. That's a political date. Okay, it doesn't matter. As I said, if it's 2045 or 2050, it is just 5 years, but it's a statement. We want to be CO2 free by 2045 or 2050. And why I'm talking now about 2045 is because, especially in the building sector, we have no exit anymore. So what we want to do is everything we do nowadays is impacting already on our 2045 goals or 2050 goals. Because the lifespan of all the techniques you apply in the building, doesn't matter if it's a window, doesn't matter if the roof, the envelope itself, so insulation, or even the equipment side, they have usually a lifetime which is between 20 and 25 years, which is exactly 2045 or 2050. So this is why we have to already think from the back or from the ending and remember what is the goal 2050, 2045, what is the standard we need for the whole building stock to be sure that we are now building correctly for
So rather than just doing the bare minimum for today's standards, should be thinking about.
We should already think from the ending and what is the goal, and we have a very precise, defined goal. And therefore we know exactly what is the heat demand, an average heat demand of the building stock should be, and so all the buildings should be. And also we had some buildings we retrofitted during the last 10 years, knowing that they will not fulfill 2045. So the buildings we are now working on should be better than the average.
I like the way you stated that yesterday, to say that there's basically not enough time to make a mistake or to do something less than ideal, because it's not going to get changed. So there is no time to be building substandard at the moment.
You might fix a little bit on the equipment side, because maybe by 2040, 2042...
So within a maintenance cycle or something
on the maintenance side, you can do something, but on the envelope itself, probably it doesn't make any sense. Do it right now, right.
And that analogy of this is kind of our last exit on the highway, and if we miss this one, it doesn't look good. What about retrofits? Because you were talking about new builds, but so many of the houses that are causing the problem, and buildings, they already exist.
That's, in Europe at least, that's a big issue. Retrofitting. New houses are important, but they have already a very high standard. But the existing building stock is, from the energy point of view, very, very poor or weak. I don't know what's the right wording, or bad.
And you show some great photos of that. I really like the photos you had of snow. And when you can see a roof without snow in amongst a whole bunch of other roofs that have snow, what's that telling you?
That there's something going wrong on. So people are heating up the outdoor environments. They are.
So the warm air is just going straight up.
It goes straight up, and it's not kept. It's not protected, so there's no insulation in the roof. And
so a roof, the outside of the roof doesn't need to be kept warm.
No.
And if that's happening, it means that there's probably not enough insulation on the inside. So, and you put up some figures, and they were quite mind-blowing. I don't remember them all, but in the millions of houses and buildings that need to be fixed, basically. How is that going to be accomplished?
Well, that's a challenge, and but we know exactly how many, or almost how many buildings we need to tackle.
Yeah.
So we know exactly in order to meet our climate goals by 2045 or 2050, we need to increase the retrofitting rate from currently 1% per year up to 2 to 2.5% per year. So we need to encourage people, especially elderly people, because they are mostly the owners of old houses, and to do something for retrofitting, or if they sadly enough passed away and hand over the buildings to a new generation, that they do something on the building stock.
Yeah. And so there are some incentives in place now.
The German government or the European Union, but especially the German government, is giving a lot of incentives on that.
Yeah.
And it's helping, but it's necessary. You need to motivate the people. So if you don't motivate, now we have the Ukrainian war, where we have a kind of a motivation, an ugly motivation, but this is definitely an enabler or a booster, but it's not enough.
Yeah. What's your advice to other parts of the world? I mean, you've come here to PhiusCon here in Chicago. I think there are some great lessons to be learned from not just Germany but Europe in terms of you see great things happening in Ireland and in these great places of the world. So many times I see people reinventing the wheel of how to do things policy-wise, technical-wise. What would you like to see in places like America?
Not only in America, but in all over the world, that energy-efficient buildings, according to the Passive House standard, should be a normal thing.
Right.
It is, so far, it's still something unusual.
Yeah.
And it should be normal, the standard.
Yeah.
And this is also kind of a communication issue, because energy-efficient buildings are not only, of course, they involve more investment costs, but on the other hand, they reduce the operational costs, they increase the thermal comfort, they increase the health, but also they guarantee your country a kind of energy safety and also energy poverty, which is one of the things we are definitely
back to what we were
just learning lately, that those people who are just focused on changing the energy source have not saved money. Yeah. Those who have worked on the envelope,
let's build more windmills or solar panels. It's like, well, how about we reduce demand?
But renewable energy is also endless.
Yeah. But the point is that if we can reduce demand, then you don't have to figure out where you're just going to get more and more energy from different sources.
And also, as we learned also yesterday by this beautiful presentation from Lisa, is about the different perspectives that energy-efficient buildings can reduce the peak loads of the grid and so on. Yeah. So it's, but it's a totally different perspective. In the past, we only looked at a single building. Yep. And that's it. But we are now in a completely different, or we will be in a completely different world. It's like the Internet of buildings. They are working together, and they are communicating together. Say one building has a huge impact on the neighbor because he can shift loads and whatever. So there's a lot of new things that will happen faster than before.
Smarter things. Thank you for coming. This way to present and share your ideas. It's great to have your knowledge, experience. Really enjoyed the presentation yesterday. Can people follow you online? You're on?
Not really.
Not really. No.
But I should work on that. Yeah, that's something I should work on it.
Yeah. But are there any resources available through your organisation, or?
Honestly, we are a little bit working on social media, about LinkedIn or something like that, but not really. That's one of the deficits we have. But that's one of the things I also need to work on. Carry
on doing the good work, and it's great that we can get to chat today and find out what is going on. I think it's really important that we do keep talking and finding out what's working in different parts of the world, because it's beneficial for everyone. So
it is.
Thank you.
Thanks. It was a pleasure.